Coconuts TV.
Sumatra is burning. The world's insatiable demand for palm oil is causing this Indonesian island to quite literally go up in smoke. Forests and peatlands are cleared for new palm oil plantations with the quickest means possible, fire. These fires pump carbon dioxide into the atmosphere and release massive amounts of harmful smoke, which causes serious health damage to the human population. They also destroy the habitats of endangered species like the Sumatran tiger, the Sumatran rhinoceros, and the orangutan. Deforestation, mostly for commercial agriculture, releases more carbon into the atmosphere than all of the cars, trucks, ships, trains, and airplanes on the planet combined. In 2012, Indonesia overtook Brazil as the country with the most rapid deforestation in the world. And that year alone, 840,000 hectares of forest were destroyed, roughly the same area as 1.2 million football fields. In November 2014, the Coconuts TV team traveled to the heart of palm oil country, South Sumatra, to get a first-hand look at these fires and the damage that they caused.
Hi, this is Byron Perry for Coconuts TV, and I'm here in a burnt-down field in the middle of South Sumatra, Indonesia. This is ground zero for Southeast Asia's haze problem and deforestation problem. This forest was burnt down most likely to cultivate palm oil. You may not know it, but palm oil is in your shampoo, your soap, your instant noodles, your chocolate, your ice cream, and forests like this throughout Indonesia are being burnt down to cultivate that oil, which is such a massive global commodity. The destruction of these fields by burning contributes haze to the atmosphere, which is felt all the way from Singapore to Malaysia to even Thailand. Every year, the haze problem has been getting worse. Not only does it contribute haze to the atmosphere, which is bad for our respiratory systems, but it also very simply contributes carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, which heats up the earth and worsens global warming. So this is one of the worst environmental problems in Southeast Asia. We're here in South Sumatra, Indonesia to investigate why are these fires happening, what can people do about it, and get to the heart of palm oil.
Do you know what palm oil is? Most likely you touch it and consume it every day. It's used as a conditioning agent in shampoos, in ice cream for a smooth and creamy texture, and to pre-cook instant noodles so that all you have to do is add water. In soap, it's used to remove dirt and to moisturize, in chocolate to create a smooth and shiny appearance, and in lipstick because it holds color, doesn't melt easily, and tastes good. Palm oil is in about 50% of everything you buy at the supermarket, and the world's biggest corporate palm oil buyers include Unilever, Procter & Gamble, PepsiCo, Nestle, L'Oreal, and Mondelez International, formerly known as Kraft Foods. It's also consumed on a massive scale as a cooking oil in China, India, and Indonesia. The consumption of palm oil is quite simply causing the deforestation of Indonesia to go into hyperdrive. The first thing we noticed upon flying into Palembang, the capital of South Sumatra, was the thick layer of dirty haze that hung in the atmosphere. We could barely see the earth below, even from a low altitude. The city is home to an estimated 1.7 million people and is an industrial powerhouse, the center of local coal, pulp and paper, and palm oil industries. Our first stop was the ramshackle local headquarters of an environmental organization called WALHI, an Indonesian branch of the NGO Friends of the Earth International. We were there to meet local director Hadi Jatmiko, who had on-the-ground knowledge of the latest fires in the area and their impact on the community.
Kalau terburuk itu pertama tahun 97, ya 97 itu di Sumatera Selatan itu terjadi kebakaran hebat, terus juga hampir setiap tahun, dan kalau terakhir itu tahun 2012 itu terbakar juga hebat. Namun memang yang terakhir di tahun 2014 ini yang durasinya sangat lama, mencapai 2 bulan lebih ya, kebakaran dan bencana asap yang akibat dari kebakaran hutan itu. Catatan kita misalnya selama bulan September itu kadar pencemaran akibat asap itu rata-rata ISPU itu di atas mencapai 800. Nah, efeknya adalah banyak. Catatan kita misalnya berdasarkan catatan pemerintah dalam hal ini ada sekitar 6.000 jiwa lebih mengalami penyakit ISPA. Kalau soal penyebab itu tadi bahwa dibukanya lahan-lahan gambut dengan cara mereka membuat kanal itu sehingga gambut itu kering, yang akhirnya ketika gambut kering itu akan ketika masuk musim kemarau itu akan sangat mudah terbakar.
Peatlands are basically swampy wetland forests full of decomposed plant matter built up over thousands of years. This dead vegetation continues as deep as 20 meters, storing huge amounts of carbon underground. Indonesia's peatlands alone store 6 times the amount of carbon released by all fossil fuel usage in the world every year, according to Greenpeace. Canals created for palm oil plantations suck the water out of Sumatra's peatlands. In their natural state, they would never catch fire, but when peatlands are drained, they basically turn into tinder. Then, intentional forest clearance fires or even an accidental tossed cigarette can start a raging inferno. Once burning peat fires are extremely difficult to put out and can smolder for months, rapidly releasing smoke and carbon into the atmosphere. In July 2013, clouds of toxic smoke from raging fires in Sumatra's Riau province billowed across the Straits of Malacca and created a thick layer of haze over Singapore and Malaysia. Singapore was hit the hardest. Haze diverted flights from Changi Airport, shuttered schools and businesses, and damaged the prosperous island nation's economy.
The air pollution level in Singapore reaches a new record high.
Singapore residents barely recognize their city.
PSI levels hit officially hazardous numbers of 401, the highest ever in Singapore and more fitting for Beijing. The governments and citizens of Singapore and Malaysia pointed their fingers at Indonesia where the smoke was emanating. Things got so bad that Indonesian President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono apologized to his 2 neighbors, a very rare move in the proud world of Asian politics. There was just one problem. An often obscured fact is that while Indonesia is the biggest palm oil producer in the world, Singaporean and Malaysian companies actually dominate the global trade. Most of the biggest palm oil producers and traders are listed or headquartered in Singapore and Malaysia, like Wilmar International, Golden Agri Resources, Sime Darby, and Musim Mas. We asked Hadi what he thought about the transboundary haze problem.
Ya, itu yang menurut kita sebenarnya tidak adil ya. Di sisi lain bahwa perusahaan-perusahaan yang terdaftar di Singapura dan Malaysia yang membakar, tetapi mereka melakukan komplain ini. Betul bahwa pemerintah kami itu harus melakukan penegakan hukum terhadap pembakar hutan dan lahan. Tetapi di sisi lain yang harus juga dilakukan oleh Malaysia maupun Singapura untuk memberikan hukuman terhadap perusahaan-perusahaan mereka yang terbukti juga melakukan pembakaran hutan dan lahan. Sehingga tidak hanya menyalahkan Indonesia, tetapi bagaimana mereka, negara-negara mereka juga mengevaluasi perizinan perusahaan-perusahaan mereka yang ada di Indonesia. Ya tadi bahwa penyebab kebakaran hutan dan bencana asap yang diekspor ke Malaysia dan Singapura itu dari perusahaan mereka juga.
Finally, we asked him what the dangers were of coming out so publicly against the bad practices of the powerful palm oil industry.
Ya kalau persoalan terancam itu yaitu sering ya, misalnya mereka menggunakan aparat pemerintah ya kan dalam hal untuk membungkam kami untuk agar tidak berkampanye soal kejahatan yang dilakukan oleh perusahaan. Namun selain aparat mereka juga menggunakan preman ya.
We asked our translator a few questions as well. She was a mother of 2 and had grown up in Palembang.
In Palembang, before there is no palm oil trees, the air is very fresh. I think like that. When I was child here, I get a nice environment because it's different like now. I have two child, 3 years and also 6 years. It's very hard for them because we have air problem. During August until October, the air in Palembang is very bad, very, very bad. My children also get a breath problem because the air is not good because there are so many burning fire in the palm oil tree area. I live here and my family live here, so I cannot go from Palembang. So the company which is burning their area, the government should give them punishment. If there are no punishment for the company, it will be again and again.
Hadi showed us aerial photos on his computer of fires in the area within the last few weeks. We could see a huge increase in smoke clouds in the before and after shots. He didn't have aerial photos of the most recent fires, but he did have a data mapping tool that showed fresh fire hotspots from the past 2 days. Hadi said that one of the recent fires was located on palm oil plantation land owned by a local grower that supplied Musim Mas, one of the biggest palm oil traders. We set out to find at least one of these fires and film it. Finding an active fire actually wasn't that easy because it had been raining the night before and November isn't peak burning season. But old scorched earth and palm oil plantations were everywhere. This is a very combustible area with everything being so dry. So we're going to walk 2 kilometers from the road where we are to here where there was a fire detected on the map 2 days ago. We're not sure if the fire will still be active, but you can see in the map that there's some blackening of the earth from the fire already. So let's go do it. Yeah. So this is the palm kernel, the product that this is all about. This is harvested from the palm oil palms, and the oil is extracted from these kernels, and it's a little bit oily. You can see my fingers are getting oily just from touching it. So this is peat. Peat is the nutrient-rich, decayed vegetation and matter that's stored up over years. In different parts of Sumatra, it gets different levels of depth of the peat, and this would never catch on fire naturally. It's wet, it's swampy. You can see this canal behind me. The water is black from the peat. So we're out here in the hot sun. As you can tell by looking at me, it's a little bit toasty. We just went the wrong way, unfortunately, so we're going back to the trail in the other direction to find this fire. We're using a little GPS handheld device.
This area used to be a peat forest.
How did they clear the peat forest to plant this palm plantation?
Usually the community cut the forest, cut the tree, and then digging a canal, and then if the dry season, they will set the fire. It's very easy and cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the problem is often the big palm oil company pay local community to set the fire. Then if government come to them why there is a fire, they take it in their concession, they will blame community.
Say it was the local people. We used the GPS system to navigate the red dirt roads of the Sumatran countryside, and when the roads ended, we got out and walked. After a few false leads, we finally found a smoldering field. It was a small fire in the grand scheme of things, but as we were soon to find out, it caused real problems. We had to crawl over stacks of fallen trees to get to the still smoking area.
Did you get that?
The ground underneath was soft, wet ash.
Look how far my feet went down because I missed the branch and stepped directly into the soil.
The Muslim call to prayer from a local mosque echoed through the air as we approached the fire. We had to crawl over stacks of fallen trees to get to the still smoking area. After 30 minutes of fighting through the brush, we made it to the burning area and set up for a shot. The burned-out landscape was surreal. Being close to even this relatively small amount of smoke for 15 minutes irritated our eyes and throats.
The smoke is kind of blowing directly into my face and I'm inhaling it. It feels awful. I wouldn't want to live near here. I pretty much want to leave as quickly as possible. I've noticed as well that it seems like pretty much everyone has a cough in Sumatra, and I can't help but feel that smoke like this has a lot to do with that. Oftentimes, Singapore and Malaysia point the finger at and really blame Indonesia for the haze in their countries. It's certainly caused by forest fires in Sumatra generally, but those forest fires are very often, a majority of the time, made to clear forests to produce palm oil. That was interesting, to say the least.
Right next to the plot of smoldering forest, we found a little dirt floor roadside shack that was home to a mother and her baby.
Mereka kepada kerja semua di sini. Ini orang pegawai semua. Jadi pasan ada pengasuh anak itu, suami saya lagi tidur. Pasan nelpon dia, "Kak, api." "Masa? Api?" katanya. Langsung suami saya padamin. Dipadami kalau merambat jeruk itu. Langsung pada orang yang punya kebun pada ini kalau turun madamin. Terus sampai api itu nyemerang, mereka pulang dari kerja pada nggak tahan kabut asap, kabut ini apa hitam-hitam itu pada keluar semua. Jadi sampai sekarang masih api itu terlalu tebal ya. Mungkin api itu kan waktu itu panas kayak berkilat-kilat itu, mungkin api itu dari bawah. Itu jadi kalau lagi ada angin besar itu besar api itu naik pohon kayu. Kok di sini aku keluarlah nyemerang ke sana. Aku takut api kan di sebelah sini. Udah mau masuk ke sini, aku keluar ngajak anak saya. Anak saya pada kenapa? Nyedot ini. Anak saya umur 2,5 bulan. Ini sekarang 3 bulan. Anak saya pada susah napasnya. Sampai malam itu sampai tidur panas, saya juga panas lagi. Api itu kan pada siang, lagi sampai 3 hari panas. Enggak, kita orang nggak punya, jadi mandi sampai 4 kali satu malam mandinya. Kita orang nggak punya, makan pun lagi susah. Sekarang kan kemarau, tanaman nggak ada yang panen. Kita sini merantau, saudara nggak ada, siapa-siapa pun nggak ada. Sampai sekarang masih merah-merah dari untuk kebakaran timbul, kayak udang masak itu, nah ini masih sedikit-sedikit. Yang dari kebakaran tuh sampai uap panas itu keluar, habis dipanas itu masih merah-merah sedikit tapi nggak ini. Waktu itu penuh badannya. Enggak, kalau sebelum kebakaran nggak ada yang merah-merah. Anak saya juga orang belakang itu juga kayak gitu juga, yang udah pacak jalan itu.
The next day, we went to see firsthand the situation on a working palm oil plantation. Our fixers from Greenpeace and Walhi said that the plantation owner and the local community were currently in a dispute over the land. Because we were technically trespassing, we cannot reveal the owner of the plantation.
So we are here in a large-scale palm oil plantation in South Sumatra, Indonesia. This land used to be peat forest, and it was cleared to create this palm oil plantation, most likely by burning. We have trespassed and snuck onto this plantation to see for ourselves what the palm oil production industry is like. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk to a couple local farmers who work on this plantation and see what they're doing for the harvesting and the production of palm oil.
Some plantation workers were gathering up loose palm oil kernels from the trees in the ground. We were able to round up a few for a chat. They said that they were paid by weight now rather than by day, and that they earned about 300,000 rupiah per month, or $30 US. Byron. Nice to meet you.
Nama saya Turia. Kerjaan saya merondol. Kami kerja di sini sudah hampir sejak sawit buka lah. Ya ditebas tadi lah. Dulu kan rawang-rawang semak itu. Kati daun tawang macam ini. Ditebas tanah ini. Mungkin kayu-kayunya ditebang. Sudah itu baru dibakar. Baru tanam sawit ini. Di sini.
Gajinya masih kecil.
Gaji masih kecil.
Untuk belanja baik. Kalau untuk beli beras kurang. Ini kan gajinya kecil ini. Sekarung itu cuma 3.000. Jadi kalau permakan untuk belanja anak ya cukup lah.
Nah, ngeras ke tulang terus apa nak lemak itu. Kalau tak kejar nih begawi itu boleh 5 karung itu. Kalau buah kan ngaus dewek bapak. Tak perlu ada. Selorong ini kalau buah ada kati paling ada saya emberin nah. Selorong dari sana ke sana terlagi. Kalau buah banyak ya boleh masih. Itulah kami buntu, itu hakahan kalau pajak. Gaji itu bulanan, sebulan sekali digaji.
As we finished up the interview with the plantation laborers, we were told that trucks were coming soon to collect the kernels left by the road. It was time for us to go. So a truck just rolled by as we were interviewing these women who are working here picking up the palm oil kernels. We're told that the truck that came by could tell the guard center that we're here shooting, so we're gonna leave. It's time to go. The palm oil debate roughly pits those in favor of more regulations, generally environmental groups, against those who are happy with the way things are, generally corporations. Around the same time we were in Sumatra, a group called the RSPO, or the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil, was having its big annual meeting in Kuala Lumpur. The RSPO is kind of like the United Nations of palm oil. It was started in 2004 when the environmental groups and the corporations agreed to sit down together and actually talk about how to make things better. At the time, the formation of the RSPO was considered a major breakthrough. To have a seat at the table and get their palm oil RSPO certified, companies must pledge to meet certain criteria, such as refraining from clearing virgin forest. This, of course, made the environmental groups happier, and it was great PR for the companies. Now they could say, hey, we're not evil, we're part of the RSPO. In the decades since the group's creation, however, deforestation for palm oil has only gotten exponentially worse. Critics have accused the RSPO of not even enforcing its own membership requirements. And in 2013, Greenpeace even released maps which showed fires on land owned by 3 major member companies: Jatim Jaya Perkasa, Sime Darby, and Wilmar International. At the 2014 meeting, the RSPO acknowledged its shortcomings and promised to expel members that didn't follow the rules in the future. We should also mention that Wilmar and Cargill have recently launched splashy initiatives aimed at cleaning up deforestation-linked palm oil from their production. While that all sounds great, it's hard not to be skeptical with complex supply chains, webs of companies, rampant laundering of dirty palm oil, and Indonesia's corrupt law enforcement. We contacted over a dozen of the biggest companies asking them to go on record for this documentary, including Wilmar, Musim Mas, and Cargill. No one would give us an interview. On the PR front, the RSPO recently commissioned an impressive multimedia-sponsored feature about palm oil in The Guardian, the same newspaper that had reported on failures of the organization just a year earlier. The report did focus on deforestation, but seemed to conclude that there was absolutely no viable commercial alternative to palm oil. It's true, though, that the palm produces a pretty amazing vegetable oil. Palm oil yields per hectare are about 10 times that of soybean oil, with significantly less energy, pesticides, and fertilizers required to farm it. Palm oil plantations by themselves aren't the problem, it's the slash and burn deforestation, especially on peatlands, that is. Dutch conservation scientist Eric Majard from the Borneo Futures Research Program is known for his pragmatic and outspoken views on palm oil. We caught up with him for an interview in Jakarta.
I write a lot for newspapers about issues. I mean, people have very preconceived ideas about conservation, and it seems to be almost like a religious belief where you're either very much against or very much in favor of something. My issue with oil palm, I mean, there's no doubt oil palm has a really bad impact on the environment, both the biological as well as the social environment. My issue is more that we have for decades been saying that oil palm is bad, is evil, should not happen, whilst we're saying that the industry is expanding. And as long as we keep ourselves on that opposing side, there is very little room for collaboration with the industry to actually try to improve practices, because it becomes increasingly clear that oil palm is not going to go away. Oil palm is expanding in Asia as we speak, but it's expanding in Africa, it's expanding in South America, and it's really high time that we find some way of developing the kind of oil palm that is more acceptable to local people, as well to people that care about the environment. Obviously, one of the big problems is oil palm is going into areas that were previously forested, tropical rainforest. And if you compare not just the biodiversity of a tropical rainforest, but also the services that come out of a tropical rainforest, for instance, the flood buffering functions of peat swamp forest, compare that to oil palm has far less value for that. So if you cut down a rainforest and put an oil palm plantation instead, that is a big environmental problem. So one of the big things for oil palm is to find the kind of oil palm that doesn't require deforestation. So that would be a really important first step. I think in general, oil palm development on peat, with all the associated problems of peat burning. Peat is not a soil. Peat will eventually just disappear. It may take 1 or 2 decades, but in the end you end up with a completely unproductive wasteland. So development of oil palm on peat is to me total nonsense. So there are a couple of guidelines that the industry could start using that would help us to develop an oil palm industry that's much more in line with the social and environmental values that a lot of people care about. There is a certain demand for vegetable oils in the world, and oil palm happens to be a crop that produces vegetable oils pretty much more effectively than any other crop in the world. So it's very unlikely that oil palm is going to go away. And if it's not going to go away, my bet is then to try to improve it.
Ultimately, this is a story about money and consumption. This is a story about economics and the damages that can be incurred to supply a massive demand. All of us drive that demand by consuming products with palm oil. This is too big and complex of an issue to make any sort of tidy conclusion, but it's obvious that all of the biggest players in the palm oil industry still drive deforestation, whether they are members of the RSPO or not. Sometimes the simple truth of what is right gets lost in the complex details of a debate. And sometimes we have a hard time changing course, especially when large industries and sums of money are in play. But as business execs hold meetings and make promises while their profits rise, Indonesia burns and everyone chokes on its smoke. This is a very immediate and very finite problem. If things continue as they are, the forests of Sumatra will go up in smoke, sending toxic matter into the air and poisoning our own people. Noble species will lose their habitats and go extinct, and global warming will worsen. We must be able to find better ways to produce vegetable oil than burning down our forests.
Coconuts TV.